Hello, this is Mijin from Milju Seron University. Today is December 29th and let's start today's Milju City News. As always, welcome to Mijun, where we stick to the fundamentals of investing in United States stocks. Mijun fam, it's really been a long time since I greeted you. I've spent about 5 nights and 6 days with my family. We traveled to Indonesia for a little less than a week, and last night we arrived in Kuala Lumpur. But my family and I, when we go on vacation, we usually play really hard. So we're still pretty tired from the trip. Also, this time I got a sore bump on my tongue, so it really hurts when I talk like this, and that's why my pronunciation isn't coming out well. While watching the broadcast, you might already feel uncomfortable because my skin is so tanned, and now I'm sorry for making you uncomfortable with my voice as well. My pronunciation might sound a bit strange today, so I hope you'll watch with an understanding heart. After taking a few days off, the bump will probably go away, and I'm hoping my skin will become a bit smoother too. Then I'd like to explain briefly with some materials and videos how my skin got so tanned like a local Indonesian in less than a week. First, this is a video of my kids and me swimming. When we go on vacation, we spend the whole day playing at the beach. Both my son and daughter love the sea, and so do I. So after swimming and playing under the blazing sun all day like this, after about a week, this happens. We get darker than the locals. So I want to apologize for appearing a bit shabby in the video like this. Let me give you a few more. This time something meaningful happened. My son and daughter learned how to surf for the first time. I also started, but my back hurt, so I couldn't keep going. But my son and daughter tried it for the first time, and as you can see, that's my son now. He really enjoyed learning how to surf. So we got tanned from swimming, but while surfing we did it for about 1 or 2 hours a day. Because of that we got even darker. If you haven't tried surfing before, you should give it a try. It's really fun. If you go to Indonesia, you can get surfing lessons from the locals, so keep that in mind. And I think it would be good to show you one more video. This video is about the Novotel where I used to work in Lombok. It's the Novotel inside Lombok Island. When I was working there, Santa Claus used to come in by boat. This time, to save on hotel costs, he came in riding a motorcycle. Personally, I think coming in by boat is really cool and nice. Anyway, everyone, for those of you in Korea and those of you in the Americas who must be feeling cold, this is what Christmas looks like in Indonesia. Santa Claus comes in wearing sunglasses in this heat. Sometimes he comes in on a motorcycle and sometimes he comes in by boat. So, it's a very special opportunity for many kids staying at the resort to each receive a gift, and this is happening in Indonesia as well. This kind of thing can really become a special Christmas memory when you spend it in Indonesia. Let me show you briefly. This is what it looks like in the evening. Novotel Lombok is really beautiful at night. If you get the chance, you should visit Lombok Island. It's right next to Bali. I think it would be great if you could visit sometime. While I'm showing you my family's vacation, let me share a few more photos. I don't know if you remember this book, but this is the second book I wrote a few years ago. But is this chocolate? We reported to Novotel, and that's the last hotel I worked at before becoming a full-time YouTuber. I went there and stayed for 3 days and 2 nights. And when I visited like this, they had a surprise gift for me. They made chocolate using my book and put it in the room. The current general manager put a lot of thought into it, so I had a really enjoyable time there. This Novotel Bogor Hotel is a typical garden hotel. It's located almost a mile away from the city, and there's a really beautiful golf course right next to it, so it's a very popular hotel among Korean guests as well. Since I received such great hospitality this time, I decided to promote Novotel Bogor on the show. So as I show you these photos, I can say that I am directly promoting Novotel Bogor to all of you. Isn't it really beautiful? It's all covered in green. Even if you visit in person, the whole hotel is surrounded by greenery like this, so the air is really fresh. I came back refreshed after relaxing at this beautiful hotel. If you ever get the chance, it's right next to Jakarta. For those of you who enjoy golf, I think it would be great to visit Novotel Bogor at least once. Alright, now that I'm back from my vacation on December 29th, let's get started with today's big news. Last week I took a break from my YouTube broadcasts from Tuesday to Friday, but videos were still uploaded during that time. I'm really grateful that Chief Executive Officer Kim In-jung of Choice DAC shared as many as 3 videos with you all. I also felt it would be a bit of a waste to just let Christmas Day pass by. So, back in 2020, because of the pandemic, we were stuck at home with my kids, and I actually have a video of a performance where I sang. So after a long time, I shared this special Christmas performance video with you all again. If you haven't seen it yet, watching it will warm your heart. Oh, and I didn't just relax during my vacation. I was actually working on something that took a lot of time and energy. Over the past few weeks, I've been continuously filtering potential stocks for Mijun. At Mijun, every 6 months, we announce the top pick for the first half of the year and the top pick for the second half of the year. So this time as well, I'm working hard to share with you the 5 stocks that are expected to have the best returns over the next 6 months. For now, I've narrowed it down to 10 stocks. Now, among these 10, I'll select the top 5 stocks. Now, I plan to reveal them to the members on Saturday, January 3rd, 2026 at 10 a.m. For those of you watching this broadcast who are not members yet, right now we're running a lifetime 50% discount event, so this is the best chance to become a member. Because starting from January 3rd, the membership price will go up by about 10. Those who sign up this time can get the 50% discounted price. You can become a member at the same price until the day I stop offering the membership, or until the day you decide to leave, whichever comes first. I really hope you take advantage of this last opportunity. Now let me go over what happened during the 4 days I took a break from broadcasting and summarize last week's hopes for the United States stock market. Now, I changed the time frame to 1 week, and over the past week, the United States stock market showed a very positive trend. Except for a few stocks, most of them continued to rise and showed positive gains. You can see it like this, and moreover, most of the indices also ended in the positive. The S&P 500 rose 1.43%, the Dow Jones 1.2%, and the Nasdaq 100 1.11% except for microcaps. This means that the price increase was mainly strong among blue chip stocks. That's how it can be summarized. The reason is something I explained before when I shared content about the Santa Rally with you. What is the Santa Rally? It refers to the last 5 trading days of December and the first 2 trading days of January. During the Santa Claus rally period, the United States stock market generally shows a good performance. Let me tell you about the time after that. As the end of the year approaches, fund managers prepare for their annual performance reports and start to adjust their portfolios. In this process, they increase the proportion of stocks that performed well during the year and sell off the stocks that have been underperforming, which is called the window dressing effect. Now, as they keep buying good stocks and selling stocks whose prices have dropped, buying demand tends to focus on large cap blue chip stocks and those with high index weights. That's how you can see it. That's why, during the Santa Rally period, the movements of indices made up of blue chip stocks, like the S&P 500 or the Nasdaq 100, tend to be quite positive. It's good to keep this in mind. Now I'll show you the breadth of the market. There's actually some really good news that has been found. All right, and as you can see, among the 500 companies that make up the S&P 500, there are 62.4 companies with a good short-term trend and 60.4 companies with a good long-term trend. So the number of companies with a good short-term trend has actually become greater than those with a good long-term trend. This means it's a kind of golden cross. As the end of the year approaches, the Santa rally is generally appearing, so we can summarize this positively, right? Now this time it's the volatility index. The volatility index has dropped a lot. It's at 13.47. So right now there's almost no volatility, and since it's a very unique market situation, it's positive. But if the volatility index drops too much like this, it could hit the bottom and then rise again. So I think we need to focus on how long this good trend can last. This is the fear and greed index. Before we knew it, it moved past neutral into greed. The fact that it moved into greed means the mood in the United States stock market is good. Right now, the positive sentiment is overwhelming the negative sentiment. That's how you should see it. If this number exceeds 60 and reaches 70 or 75, at that point you'll need to gradually increase your cash holdings a bit more. I myself have been buying a lot of stocks recently, so my cash ratio is a bit lower than my target of 20%. So when the stock market is running like this and moving into the greed phase, if you gradually sell off stocks that aren't performing well and increase your cash holdings, that's another piece of advice I'd like to give you. Next, I'll show you the results of the American Association of Individual Investors survey, which is quite interesting. This is as of December 24th. Currently, only 37.4% of investors have a neutral opinion. If that's the case, it was over 44% for 2 weeks, but the atmosphere isn't good. That's not all, is it? Right now, the percentage of investors who think the United States stock market will actually be lower than it is now in 6 months is increasing, isn't it? Compared to 32 weeks ago and 33 last week, it actually went up to 34.8. This part is very interesting. There's a lot of talk right now that the United States stock market has high valuations because of the AI bubble, but for a bubble to form, the opinions of many investors need to come together. Right now, the United States stock market needs to have an atmosphere where people believe it can keep running. But that's not the current atmosphere, even compared to historical averages. Actually, the atmosphere is depressed, making it reasonable to evaluate it that way. Too much negative sentiment dominates the market for a bubble to form. This can be seen positively, so there's no need to worry about a bubble now. Next is Micron, the top picks performance. The stock that performed the best over the past week was Micron Technology. It surged in just 1 week. Second, Nvidia rose 5.27%, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company 4.81%, Celestica 3.86%, Broadcom 3.46%, Talon Energy 3.30%, Google 2.07%, Palo Alto 1.02%, Advanced Micro Devices 0.73%, and Meta 0.69%, all closing higher. The rest of the stocks are in the red. First of all, Bitcoin and Ethereum have dropped, but Bitcoin is still above 90,000, and Ethereum has also surpassed 3,000. So you can see that they've already recovered from last week's poor performance. Tesla fell 1.25, Palantir 2.41, Coinbase 3.35, Credo 3.53, Ethereum 5.01, and Bitmain 9.73. Lastly, B2 dropped by 21.5, creating the worst trend. Today, because my tongue hurts a lot, I'm going to keep the broadcast short. So I'll just introduce one thing and then wrap up today's broadcast. But this article is extremely important in my opinion. Out of all the news released last week, this is the most important one. I can say that with confidence. It's the leading unassisted pick. News about Nvidia. It's about whether the largest merger and acquisition in Nvidia's 32-year history will be successful. Let's read this article together. I'll also share my personal commentary on why this acquisition is so important. It's been a few days since the news broke that Nvidia will spend $20 billion to acquire key talent from the chip startup Groq. So it's not exactly breaking news, it's already a few days old. And as for Groq, they called this a non-exclusive licensing agreement. I'll explain in more detail what this means in just a moment. Bernstein's analyst Stacy Rasgon appears. They've become so big now. By they, I mean Nvidia. Nvidia has become such a huge company. Even if they close a $20 billion deal on Christmas Eve without any press release, no one is surprised. $20 billion is a huge amount, isn't it? News like this comes out so naturally, they talk about it like it's nothing. Neither company has confirmed the exact amount, but Consumer News and Business Channel says, through Alex Davis, a major investor in Groq, Consumer News and Business Channel confirmed that Nvidia has agreed to pay $20 billion in cash to acquire assets from Groq, a high-performance AI accelerator chip design company. The founder and chief executive officer of Groq is Jonathan Ross. Not only him, but also high-level leaders, including President Sunny Madra. They are expected to join Nvidia to help develop and expand licensing technology. However, Groq itself will remain an independent company led by Chief Financial Officer Simon Edwards. So Nvidia is not completely acquiring the company Groq this time, but rather signing a licensing agreement. Another thing is that they are bringing in key talent. You can see it that way. Now let's take a look at why this is so important. This deal, it's the largest in Nvidia's 32-year history. Before this, the largest acquisition was in 2019, when they acquired the Israeli chip design company Mellanox for about $7 billion. However, instead of the traditional acquisition method, Nvidia is following the approach recently used by other tech giants, which is to access core technology through licensing agreements. We're discussing a strategy of spending billions to recruit top AI talent. What do you think about this approach? This is the method that Meta, Google, Microsoft, and Amazon have used to avoid investigations by antitrust authorities. Nvidia put in a lot of effort a few years ago to acquire a company called Advanced Reduced Instruction Set Computer Machines, but they failed. It also took a tremendous amount of time back then. And after that, they took it as a lesson. So from now on, instead of going for mergers and acquisitions in the traditional way, you can say they chose a somewhat safer path. So you can see that they're using a smart strategy that avoids antitrust investigations, similar to what other tech giants are doing now, poaching talent and acquiring technology only through licensing agreements. Stacy Rasgon sees antitrust regulation as the biggest risk, so they're still not completely free yet. By making this a non-exclusive license, they can pretend competition still exists. That's the analysis. There's a strong chance it won't be caught by antitrust regulations. Groq was founded in 2016 by engineers who created Google's custom chip, the TPU. So, what is Groq's particular strength? It's in the inference area of the AI market. That's the core of this acquisition. That's because Nvidia currently dominates the AI model training market. But inference refers to the process where a trained model makes decisions based on new information. And the inference market is just beginning to take off. It's only starting to develop now. Because there still aren't many AI applications we actually use yet. In the future, a lot of applications will be released. Some of them could be software, and some of them will be artificial intelligence disguised as hardware. For example, things like autonomous driving or robots are ultimately inference. So when a trained model is implemented as an application, that's called inference. And the leader in inference is Groq. You can think of it that way. Kentios analysts, Nvidia is simultaneously playing offense and defense by securing Groq's assets to prevent them from falling into the hands of competitors. That's really smart. This acquisition is expected to not only strengthen Nvidia's overall system stack and leadership in the AI market, but also further widen its competitive moat. Analysts at Bank of America also consider this deal surprising and expensive, but strategic. They point out that while GPUs have driven AI training, Nvidia recognizes that the rapid shift to inference may require more specialized chips. So you can see it as Nvidia acquiring Groq to prepare for the possibility that GPUs might not be number one in the inference market. NVIDIA's Chief Executive Officer Jensen Huang is scheduled to give a speech at Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas on January 5th. It's a very important event, and we can expect to hear more detailed information about this deal at that time. Now, a word from Ji-Hoon Mi. This time I'll share my personal assessment with you on why NVIDIA's strategy of signing a licensing agreement with a company called Groq and attracting key talent is so important. In the past, acquiring an entire company was the fastest way to secure technology. However, in the AI market, big tech companies like NVIDIA now prefer to secure long-term licenses for core technologies and directly hire the founders and key engineers who develop those technologies rather than acquiring the whole company. So, on the surface, this looks more like a partnership than an acquisition, but in reality, it's a structure that absorbs nearly all the technology and talent, like a merger or acquisition where only the shell remains, and all core tech and key people are brought in. Now, I explained earlier that this kind of strategy is primarily to minimize antitrust regulatory risks. Traditional acquisitions are highly likely to be interpreted as strengthening market dominance or restricting competition. This is especially true for Nvidia, because right now, their market share in the AI semiconductor market is over 90%. Therefore, if they acquire another semiconductor company, especially one specialized in AI inference, it's highly likely that the acquisition won't be approved. That's what we can expect. But what about hiring talent through non-exclusive licensing? Legally, it can maintain the appearance of competition. Therefore, I would say that this was a very wise decision by Nvidia, as it allows them to deeply integrate core technologies into their own roadmap while avoiding regulatory scrutiny. Second, the execution speed is extremely fast. The AI market doesn't plan 3 to 5 years ahead, does it? Because, well, you never know what might happen even in a month. The AI market is one where the landscape changes every 6 to 12 months. So it's really important who moves faster. That's why, rather than wasting time on acquisition procedures and integration, it's much more efficient to immediately start development through licensing agreements and hiring talent. And the third key asset is what we actually control. What does this mean? For example, Groq's key leadership, like Chief Executive Officer Jonathan Ross and many engineers, can be transferred to NVIDIA. So in effect, this acquisition is no different from absorbing Groq's technology and human resources into NVIDIA. Only the shell remains. The original company remains as an independent legal entity, but in reality, all the driving force for innovation is taken by NVIDIA. Currently, NVIDIA holds over 90% of the AI training market, but in the future, it's highly likely that the leadership in the AI market will shift to the inference market, where the created models are actually run. The inference market is the stage where artificial intelligence is continuously used through applications. Therefore, it's still hard to even imagine how many different markets will open up. When you understand this background, Groq's language processing unit comes into play. Language Processing Unit stands for Language Processing Unit, and this is the AI chip that Groq is proud of. It's an inference chip, you can see it that way. This chip is said to boast overwhelming performance in terms of inference speed, and by absorbing this technology, NVIDIA, it can be interpreted that they have laid the foundation to become a total AI solution company that handles both training and inference, a full-stack AI company, in other words, evolving in that direction. This kind of change, it could have a significant impact on NVIDIA's revenue structure as well. Training brings in very limited recurring revenue after the initial large-scale investment. After buying a GPU, you use it for training and can't frequently buy new ones. But what about applications? As long as AI services are being used, the area where continuous revenue is generated can be seen as the operating model. If NVIDIA gets application optimization tech, what happens? It is highly likely that they will evolve from a company that sells GPUs once to a platform company that generates revenue every time AI is actually used. This can greatly increase the stability and predictability of revenue. Why is it important for revenue to be stable and predictable? I'll explain this in the following part. Another aspect can't be overlooked. A defensive meaning, what I mean by this is it's like the saying, the best defense is a good offense. You can think of it that way. If specialized patent technologies like that end up in the hands of competitors from Nvidia's perspective, right now they're the clear number one, but their top position could gradually become threatened. They're preemptively blocking this possibility. By attacking, they're actually defending themselves. That's how you should see it. That's what I'm saying. It's not just about acquiring technology, but about strengthening their competitive moat. Right now, Nvidia is the undisputed number one, right? So instead of just defending by attacking, they're actually strengthening their economic moat so that no one else can approach them. That's one way to interpret it. The more this strategy is repeated, the market, people no longer see Nvidia as just a high-growth GPU company. What this means is now they're starting to evaluate Nvidia as a platform company that defines the standard for AI infrastructure. Originally, they only sold GPUs, but that's not the case anymore. They now sell packages and have introduced a subscription model for the inference stage. If this happens, Nvidia's valuation can receive a premium closer to that of an infrastructure platform company rather than a traditional semiconductor company. Stock prices are earnings multiplied by multiples, right? As we know well, Nvidia's revenue and earnings keep showing tremendous growth repeatedly. But if the multiples expand as well, right now Nvidia's multiple is only about 30 times at most. But if it's recognized not only as an infrastructure company but also as a platform company, if that happens, for example like Tesla, there's a possibility that the premium could rise significantly. Then, if the earnings grow a lot and the premium also increases, Nvidia's stock price is very likely to rise sharply again. That's one way to look at it. In the end, this deal between Nvidia and Groq can be interpreted as a sign that Nvidia is upgrading its business model to secure long-term leadership in the AI era. In other words, they've reduced regulatory risks and can increase execution speed. There's a high possibility that things will move quickly. And will they become a platform company that dominates even the application market? It's an impressive approach, and this kind of approach does come with a high cost. It's the biggest acquisition in Nvidia's 32-year history. However, despite that, from Nvidia's perspective, I personally think it's a very reasonable and smart strategy. So I hope the deal between Nvidia and Groq will be completed quickly and successfully. The last content prepared for today is today's United States stock video. In today's United States stock video, Tom Lee appears. Tom Lee, who appeared on Consumer News and Business Channel News, explains his outlook for 2026. And this outlook contains a lot of very useful information. Not only does it cover the general outlook for the United States stock market, but it also discusses what might happen to Bitcoin and Ethereum in 2026. And there's one more thing. It reveals the top picks that investors should pay attention to in 2026. I think it would be good for you to check for yourself which names Tom Lee selected as his top picks for 2026. That's all for today's stock news on December 29th. It's been a while since we've sent out a broadcast, so I'm sure your expectations were quite high. I'm a bit embarrassed to greet you like this with a lisp and tanned skin. I hope my tongue heals quickly so I can deliver the broadcast to you with clear pronunciation. The travel fatigue will fade over time, right? I'll try to greet you tomorrow looking a bit fresher. Alright, that's it for today. Thank you to everyone who joined the broadcast on December 29, 2025. Let's all keep going together until the day we all retire through investing in United States stocks. Have a happy day. Thank you.
Mr. C has been invited. Are there any stocks on this year's recommended list for the year-end season? People might say something behind our backs, though. But we need to start with the topic that everyone is asking about the most, which is crypto. People are curious about the target price for Ethereum, and they're also asking what you think about Bitcoin, especially since Bitcoin is the only asset not yet part of the melt-up trend Steve is watching.
The crypto market in 2025 had been having a pretty good year up until October 10th, but from that point on, the trends of crypto, gold, and risk assets suddenly started to diverge. Do you think this is because there was a large-scale liquidation event similar to the FTX collapse in 2022? Back then, it took about 8 weeks for the market and market makers to recover and find direction, and I think the same process is happening right now. The mid to long-term outlook for crypto remains very positive, and over the next 5 to 10 years, it will likely keep a strong trend. I don't want to overuse the term supercycle, but it's clear that Wall Street is moving toward tokenizing everything. Whether it's Vlad from Robinhood or Larry Fink from BlackRock, they're all looking in the same direction, and these changes will not only greatly increase the overall efficiency of Wall Street, but also bring real use cases for assets like Ethereum to the forefront. So we're quite optimistic. Currently, Ethereum is about $3,000, and we believe it could reach $7,000 to $9,000 by early 2026 long term. If it competes with payment infrastructure, it could even hit $20,000. Overall, we maintain a very strong bullish outlook. We also have a positive outlook on Bitcoin, but currently, we believe it is experiencing a sense of relative deprivation compared to gold, what you might call jealousy toward gold. During this liquidation phase, gold is seen as a strong asset with a market cap over $30 trillion. However, Bitcoin is inherently a limited supply store of value. Next year is highly likely to be the point when Bitcoin enters a market recovery phase, and I believe the $200,000 level is a perfectly reasonable target.
I'd like to discuss some recommended stocks. Nvidia is among the top 5 key ideas, along with Advanced Micro Devices, Meta, Goldman Sachs, and Arista Networks. Are the stocks you mentioned as the bottom 5 ones you don't prefer, or are they simply the latter part of your top 5 list?
Yes, it's our core research, meaning it's a list of core stocks we prefer, but the bottom 5 stocks are those that Mark Newton and I think are not quite appropriate in terms of timing right now.
That's the reason for CrowdStrike.
So it's not a stock we should sell, right?
So that list includes CrowdStrike, Costco, Palo Alto, and Tesla. What message would you like to give to Tesla bulls? Willis, Toward, and Watson are also listed.
Tesla has been on our research list since 2019, and we have never considered giving up on Tesla. The reason is Tesla and Elon Musk. The present value of the future value created by his various ideas such as Optimus Prime, Robot Taxi, and XAI is just so great. In the short term, since Tesla's stock price has risen significantly recently, we believe that instead of expecting further increases, the stock is currently in a so-called consolidation phase, digesting the previous gains and undergoing some adjustment.
Reviewing the top 5 recommended stocks, there appears to be industry balance. Do you favor certain industries or sectors over individual stocks, or do you focus solely on specific companies instead of industries?
Looking to 2026, we are optimistic about tech, including next year. However, tech is sensitive to the Institute for Supply Management Index, interest rate changes, and benefits most from dovish Federal Reserve policy. Because of that, do you think it's a phase where we need to include not only tech but also financials, industrials, energy, and basic materials sectors together?
Looking at the probability of a Fed rate cut next year, it seems like nothing will happen in January, and there probably won't be any big changes in March either. It could be as early as April, but the most likely timing appears to be June. I'd like your thoughts on this schedule's market importance and your perspective on it.
In my opinion, that timeline makes enough sense. That's because Chairman Powell will still be serving as the Fed chair until the second half of next year. I believe the period from the nomination of a new Fed chair to their confirmation is exactly when the market will start to fully price in a more dovish Fed. From that perspective, I think it's natural to interpret the first half of next year as a legacy pricing period, where the market still moves based on the existing system, that is, Chairman Powell and the current monetary policy stance.
Are you still holding on to the Magnificent Seven?
I'm still optimistic about the Magnificent Seven for next year.
It would be nice if you could make it sexy, in your view. Release your greed, you won't lose this time. The result simply continues the process. I'm not afraid of dark adjustments. I'll hold Miju's hand and move forward, becoming the light of an unseen tomorrow. Happy investing. Vital Minjok who supports each other's dreams. Let's walk together down this beautiful downhill road. Happy investing together with Miju? All of us will bravely walk this beautiful downhill road until the day we retire with national stocks.
A beautiful downhill road.